The Sleeping Beauty, a wonderful little story by the Grimm brothers, but I will call her by her German name, and this is Dornröschen. I like that much more. Dorn means thorn from the roses, and Röschen is a little rose. So Dornröschen is her real original name. My name is Jadwiga. Welcome to my channel, and now listen to the wonderful story of Dornröschen. Once upon a time there were a king and a queen who wished for a child but couldn't have one. Until one day the queen was sitting by a water when a frog jumped out and sat beside her and said, "Before the year ends, you will give birth to a little girl." And it turned out the frog was right. By the end of the year, the queen gave birth to a beautiful, beautiful little girl, and everyone was very happy. Now, the parents decided to give a huge feast and invite all kinds of people, their family, their friends, their neighbors, and also the members of the other royal families around, and 13 wise women. These 13 wise women were very important because they were to bless the little girl, to give her all the good things for her life she might need. But there was a problem. There were 13 wise women, but only 12 golden plates. And these wise women should eat from golden plates, not just from some ordinary plate. So what did they do? They only invited 12 of the wise women. And after the dinner, they had finished the dinner, the wise women went to the cradle, and looking at that little girl, each of them gave her her blessing, like beauty, like wealth, like health, like compassion, friendliness, all kinds of things. And when 11 of these wise women had given their blessings to the little girl, the 13th woman, who had not been invited, she rushed in, not looking right or left, nor saying hello to anyone. She stood at the cradle and she said, "And I wish that on your 15th birthday, you hit your finger with a spindle and you will fall dead." And with these words, she rushed out. And nobody dared to say a word. Everyone was stunned. But now the 12th wise woman, who had not yet given her blessing, she was not able to recall that spell, but she was able to make it a little less bad. So she said, "No, I don't want you to die on your 15th birthday. I just want you to sleep for 100 years. And that was it. Now the king, having heard this spell, immediately gave order that there was no spindle allowed in the whole kingdom. They all had to be burnt, and nobody was allowed to have a spindle in the house. So there was no spinning anymore, of course. Okay. Now, the little girl grew up and she became more and more pretty, and she was happy and everybody loved her. And on her 15th birthday, it happened that her parents were not at home. So she went through the castle, she looked into every chamber, every room, every little space, until she ended up at a stair that guided up to a tower. And she climbed up the stairs, found a door with a key sticking in. She turned that key, opened the door, and found an old woman spinning. And she said hello to the old woman, very friendly because she was well educated, and then asked that woman, "What are you doing there?" Because she had never ever seen somebody spinning. And the old woman said, I am spinning. Look here. And she handed over that spindle to the little girl. She took it, hit her finger, and a drop of blood came out, and she fell like dead onto the bed that stood there right at the side. Now, with the girl falling asleep, the whole castle, every human, every animal fell asleep at the same second. The doves on the roof, the horses in the stable, the dogs in the court, even the flies on the wall, they all fell asleep. And the servants fell asleep. And the king and the queen, who had just returned home, sitting in their thrones, fell asleep. And the cook, who just wanted to hit the little boy, couldn't do that because he fell asleep. And now a rose hedge started to grow around that castle. And with every year, this rose hedge became higher and thicker. And after a couple of years, you couldn't even see there has been a castle behind. But the story of that beautiful princess sleeping there behind the roses, that spread around the world. And many princes said, oh yes, we want to awake this little girl, this princess, get to marry her because she's so beautiful, and then gain the whole kingdom. But no matter how big and strong their swords were, they started hitting into that hedge, but that hedge at the same moment closed behind them, and they were trapped in that hedge, and there was no escape. Now, after many, many years, people had almost forgotten about that. It happened that a young prince came into that village, and an old man told him that his grandfather once has told him that behind these roses there was a castle where everyone was asleep, and there was a beautiful little princess who had fallen asleep on her 15th birthday there, and that no one had been able so far to wake her up to rescue her. And the prince, hearing that, immediately decided, I want to see her. Oh, she must be so beautiful. I simply want to see her. What he did not know, of course, was that the 100 years just had passed. And when he approached that rose hedge, it opened. It opened a path, and he was just guided to the court of the castle. And there he found the sleeping dogs, the sleeping horses in the stable, the sleeping doves on the roof, and all the sleeping servants, king and queen, sitting on their thrones, deep sound asleep. And so he walked around everywhere until he reached these stairs, guiding up to that tower. He climbed up the stairs, opened the door to this little chamber, and found Dornröschen sleeping on her bed. And she was so beautiful. She was so, so beautiful. He couldn't help but kneel down and kiss her onto her mouth. And with this, Dornröschen opened her eyes, looked around. She was awake, and the prince explained what had happened. Now, in this moment, when Dornröschen opened up her eyes, the horses in the stable stood up, the dogs went on barking, the doves on the roof were purring, and even the flies on the wall started their business. And all of the servants woke up, king and queen woke up, and the cook in the kitchen now was able to hit his boy with 100 years of delay, but he did that. Now, of course, Dornröschen and her prince got married. They got very, very happy, and yeah, maybe they still are. Yeah, this story is full of magic, of numbers, for example. There is the 12 wise women that give their blessings to the little girl. And the 12, we have 12 hours a day, 12 months a year, 12 signs in the zodiac. And, well, the 12 is somehow a number of fulfillment, of completement. But the 13 is the number of unluck, of evil, of unhappiness. It's not a good number. So for a good reason, when you go into the elevator of a hotel, there is never a 13th floor. It's just the 12th and the 14th, but no 13th, because nobody wants to live or to stay on the 13th floor. And there is also I don't think it's a rumor, I think it's proof that there must be a 13th sign in the zodiac. And people think it is a snake. So the snake has two sides. The snake is known for wisdom, but also for evil, for falsehood. Should have looked up that word, sorry. So there are two sides of the medal, and maybe this is not a coincidence that the wisdom and the lie are two sides of one coin. What does it mean that Dornröschen grows up in that castle, very protected? So this castle gives her safety. She is very well protected within the walls of that castle. But on the other hand, it's a kind of prison. So there are two sides in that castle, because she is not able to make own experiences, to deal with danger, to have any adventures, to manage challenges. There is nothing in her life that she could grow on. So there is no development. When she hits her finger, and this might as well be the sign that she comes into puberty, that she starts the age of adultness, she's so frightened because she's completely unprepared. She knows nothing. She's a little girl and she has no idea about life. And this means she has to draw herself back, lock her up, and fall into sleep, which means she locks her chamber like many young people in that age do. They pull themselves back because there is so much happening within their bodies and their minds and their souls, and they have to deal with that. That's a difficult time. And Dornröschen, well, she needs 100 years to do that, but who cares? And all these young princes who want to rescue her, they are driven by their egos, because they want to possess this beautiful woman, and they want to possess this kingdom too. But the prince that eventually comes, he does not want that. He is not ego-driven. He simply wants to see her. He wants to enjoy her beautiness. And this is a completely different sort of approach to Dornröschen. And this is why the hedge opens. Yeah, thank you for listening. If you liked it, give me a thumb, and maybe you subscribe to my channel. Hopefully see you next time, and bye.